remind me to take care of that.
Put it here, this is the pile of things to do.
It's just.
We're waiting for Lisa.
Right, she's coming.
That's correct.
Is that where elections send us?
And Mark, is he hasn't logged in yet? Steve,
No. Steve's.
I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Can you see me? Hear me?
Must.
okay, can you hear us, Mark?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, terrific.
I'm here too, and I can hear you.
All right, Steve, great. And Dave, can you hear us?
I got you loud and clear.
Okay, thank you.
So faint. We gotta figure that out for the next meeting.
You can turn up the
Can we
volume.
grab it? Yeah, I mean, can't see.
Well, that's right. I wouldn't touch it till Robin says. Don't touch that. I'll break it. State Central.
Yeah.
I'll be mailing out a package to you.
Did somebody try to get the whole cleared?
Claire is not answering, so I have forfeited time. So it's going down.
You can't use them.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's Brian right here.
Right?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
he's here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Lisa.
Thank you.
I'm here. I was on mute. I'm sorry. I'm here.
Okay,
It's Lisa.
great. All right, you're here, Lisa.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I was on mute.
Nope, I was just reaching you and thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We'll start today's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
Republic for which is
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will note that 3 of the 4 board members are here. I'm in person. Mr. Wondolowski and Ms. Sticken are attending remotely as permitted by the Ohio Revised Code. And Ms. Ina Jo Davis Chappelle, unfortunately, has fallen ill. She's let Tony and I know. So I'll move to excuse her absence if there's a second.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Is there a way to turn that up, Robin, or Dave? Dave, if you could turn your end up.
I
a little
said
bit.
aye. Sorry if you didn't hear.
Thank you, Lisa. If you could turn your end up a little bit, it's coming through very softly and not your typical Dave Wondolowski voice that we're used to. So, all right, I'm going to move to acknowledge the first directive 2022-36. It's on our agenda. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. It acknowledges the secretary's. It talks about the examination and verification of petitions for statewide independent candidates. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. I'll note it passes unanimously. And on to the certification of issues and candidates for the August 2nd primary election. We have here Mr. Waller. Does anyone want to add to anything that's in the agenda, sir? Okay. I guess before we act on this, we do have one matter involving a Mr. Britt, who he originally filed petitions and then filed a what's the form?
Form 2ZA.
2ZA. Let me see if I can recap this correctly, and we have information here. Mr. Britt filed his form 2. Mr. Britt, there it is. On February 2nd, he filed his petitions indicating that he wanted to run in District 21 on his petition. On February 26th, Directive 2022-26 was released, discussing with the District Remap 3 is going to be defined as the General Assembly districts to be utilized for primary election, for the election. under version 3 maps, Mr. Britt resided in District 23. So under the SOS rules, he was permitted to file an SOS Form 2ZA on March 1st, which he timely did, indicating he was going to move into the 21st district, though he was originally living in the 23rd. So he said, I'm going to move in, and Directive 2022-31 was released and removed the General Assembly's office from the May 3rd primary ballot. And then on May 28th, Directive 2023 was released, 2022-34 is released, instructs the board to have a primary on August 2nd, and says the map's going to be map 3, and this directive does, and says whoever filed a 2ZA under Directive 2026 has until June 7th now to move into the district they identified. And in that directive, it says he has to do that. The new deadline for the General Assembly candidates to reside in another district was June 7th, yesterday, and that extension was granted because of the pause in implementation. 2022-34 also stated that the board, it's a directive from the secretary, the board cannot accept any more 2ZAs after March 10th. On June 7th, Mr. Britt came into our offices, filed a new Form 2ZA after the March 10th deadline, and indicated that he's not moving, and he intends to run in District 23. Additionally, he is filed to be on the State Central Committee ballot on a timely manner, so he will appear on that. So, I mean, that's kind of teeing it up for everybody. Mr. Musson, I know you just sent us an email out kind of summarizing what your thoughts were on it in regards to this matter. And additionally, I want to add, Member Sticken had brought this up. We have not received any guidance from the Secretary of State's office. They haven't provided any guidance for any board throughout the state. They are aware of this situation. Mr. Pilati indicated there was a situation in another district where that cured itself because the individual actually moved into the district, as he indicated. So, having said that, Mr. Musson, what is your counsel to this board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Reviewing the directives and the various machinations of the maps and the history of the filing, the latest directive from the Secretary of State 2022-34 has a specific provision in there stating that the Board of Elections shall not or may not accept a Form 2-ZA addendum filed after March 10th, 2022. So I think the board is limited by that and is obligated to follow the directives or not act in contrary to the directive. So I think conclusively that the Secretary of State's office precludes the refiling or the secondary or the second amendment to the Declaration of Candidacy. I know that there's a lot of history behind it, but I think we're obligated to follow that directive.
Can I ask a question?
Please, Ms. Sticken.
So he filed the addendum timely to say he was moving now, and I appreciate you answering some of my questions offline about this too, but so now they're saying we can't accept yet another addendum after that deadline. Is this though similar, because he's not, I understand he's filing an addendum on an addendum or an addition on an addition here, but what is this, a withdrawal of maybe an addendum? Is that permitted? Because he did timely file petitions. I guess that's also a question I have in my head. Is there a distinction here?
I don't think so. He originally filed to run in District 21 under the map that is currently in play. So I think trying to amend it to run in District 23 after the deadline set by the Secretary of State and not moving within the district within the 30 days provided under the Constitution, and then as extended by the various changes in the governing decisions, precludes him from appearing on the ballot in this district.
Okay, I got it, understood.
Let me add too, Mr. Britt was advised of today's meeting. I understand he told staff he did not intend to attend today's meeting. So he's had that opportunity to address the board. based on what I've heard, I'm gonna make a motion to deny the Form 2ZA that he has filed. I don't know if it's denied, but I'm not gonna certify him to ballot. Is that probably the correct motion, Mr. Rowe? Okay. I'll move not to certify Mr. Britt to the ballot in as much as he did not move into District 21 and take the necessary steps under Directive 2022-34 to effectuate his candidacy. If he had moved in and taken those steps, he'd be getting certified, but he chose not to. So my motion will be not to certify Mr. Britt to the August 2nd ballot. There's a second.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Would it make sense to, I mean, to interrupt you, would it make sense to make a friendly amendment to also include and not recognize any late filed addendums as well? Because I think he did try to file the addendum, is my understanding, which we also are rejecting.
Yes.
Okay.
I thank you, Member Sticken. It's a friendly amendment. We'll include that in my motion. We'll also reject his Form 2ZA filing in light of the fact that it's mute, it's late, it's after the deadline per the directive. Any other question or comment on that? Mr. Britt, are you in attendance? I don't hear him.
I don't hear.
See him. So all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'm going to vote yes. I did want to put a comment on the record. I think this is a really another example of a confusing situation, but ultimately I'm voting yes as well because the directive is pretty clear that we can't consider it given the date. That was a clear directive. So thank you.
Ms. Sticken. And Mr. Wondolowski, your vote, sir?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The motion passes unanimously. I will move on now to also accept, we just had this as a walk-on item, but accept the withdrawal of Jeff Johnson as a candidate, a Democratic candidate in Ohio Senate District 23. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And then on to the certification of candidates. I will move to certify the certification of issues and candidates for the August 2nd, 2022 primary election as set forth in our agenda. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Are there question or comment about that? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Let's see here. We have an agenda item. We have two agenda items, one involving compensation and one involving hiring. Is there a need to go into executive session on either of these?
I don't think so. Not on my end.
I don't either. Ms. Sticken?
I don't think so.
Okay. Then we have three public comments too. Before I proceed, is there any other, no, we have another public, is there any other items of business? Oh, yes. Okay. The audit's a walk-in item.
Audit.
Thank you. Mr. Cleary, are you on the line, sir?
I am indeed. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can quite well. Why don't you tee this up for us, sir?
Sure. Beginning June 7th, the ballot department conducted 3 risk-limiting post-election audits for the May primary election. We audited the Democratic governor race, the Republican United States Senate race, and the Democratic county executive race. There were a total of 163,961 ballots cast in the May election. A hand count was conducted of 4,277 ballots in the audited contests. The accuracy rate for the post-election audit was 100%, meaning everything matched the official canvas. So everything matched 100% as we expected it to. And I'll take any questions if you have at this time.
Are there any questions for Mr. Cleary? Okay, hearing none, then I'll move to acknowledge the May 3rd, 2020 primary election post-election audit summary is presented and set forth in our agenda. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Here, any other question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. On the personnel agenda, we have 2 items. Mr. Perlotti, if you'd like to set that up for us, please.
So the first item that we have is that we are recommending that the Board of Elections, all permanent employees here at the board receive a 1% cost of living adjustment. It's an additional 1% effective July 3rd of 2022 of this year. This recommendation comes off of what County Executive Budish put before the County Council and was approved for non-bargaining employees underneath the County Executive some of the bargaining units, and I think other bargaining units are currently working on memorandums of understanding to follow a similar suit. The costs for this COLA will be able to be absorbed in the Board of Elections' current budget, and that's because of attrition that we have from vacancies that we currently have on staff. So it will not be another appropriation needed for this. We have communicated with the county's Office of Budget and Management, who are supportive of those funds being available and eligible for use for this purpose.
Okay, I will move to approve for the salary adjustment of 1% COLA effective July 3rd, 2022. If there's a second.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Are there any other questions, Ms. Sticken or Mr. Wondolowski, for Mr. Pilati? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, motion passes unanimously, and I'll take the last agenda item. I see that you and Mr. Gallagher are recommending Ms. Mary Hannah be hired to replace Helen Ty. Is that correct?
Yes, we are recommending Mary Hannah Boyer, current employee, to replace, to promote into the vacancy created by the resignation of Helen Tien as our database administrator. Mary Hannah has been an employee here for 3 years, is a strong employee, good employee, and with her on board, will help to ensure that this agency continues to be able to execute all of the things in the voter registration database as needed, to execute our functions.
Who was involved? Robin, Roy, were you involved with that interview process?
Yes.
Too? Okay, terrific. And you too, Lori. All right, great. All right. Based on that recommendation and follow-up information you provided us from the Secretary of State's office, I will move to approve the hiring of Miss Mary Hannah Boyer for that position. There's a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Wondolowski. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And David too?
Aye. Yes.
Great. All right. The motion passes unanimously. I think that takes us through the agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. We through the agenda, Mary?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. I always got to check with the clerk.
That's right.
All right. We have a number of public comments here. I remind those and welcome those comments. They have 5 minutes to address the board. And first we start with Reverend Pamela M. Pinckney Butts.
Oh, I'm enjoying you all this week, I see.
Welcome.
Good evening again. First of all, I want to thank you for these opportunities that you all welcome me to come and talk to you all. It's greatly appreciated. Secondly, I wanted to clarify to you, Chairperson Hastings, I never want you to feel targeted on the spot, offended, or embarrassed by any of my questions.
Thank you.
I never want that. I'm not here to fight or argue or embarrass anybody or reprimand anybody. That's not my job. When I was talking to you the other day, as also being a community leader, I hear the voices of the people, and gossip hurts a lot of people. And when I was asking you about whether the Republican Party does not want ballot boxes, more ballot boxes, and whether the Republican Party wants to suppress voters, it's because of a commonality of conversations in the community. And my being a neutral person and a multi-partisan person, a multiracial person, I believe that every party should have a voice, whether it be Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever the party is. But if we don't have enough ballot boxes for the voices of the people to be heard through voting, then that poses difficulties. And I asked that someone from the Republican Party, and even all of the parties, as many parties that will come together, would offer a public platform through the voting process so that people can ask their questions and address their concerns. Your meetings are very welcoming and very adequate for what you do, but we need more of a community public voice from each party. And would you please take that, director or board members, to the multiple parties for concern? Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about was when I spoke to you on Monday, my voting rights were violated when I reported abuse. And therefore, when elections come around, people have been subduing my voting rights and making my ballots disappear. And Director Perlotti went through a lot to try to find out what happened to my ballot in 2008. But I voted as soon as I was of age to vote. And now my voting record is destroyed because someone in this agency before your leadership tampered with my voting history. I ask that you would look into that and have your attorney look into that, because my ballot disappeared in 2004 and in 2008 after I reported abuse. And it's not fair, it's not right. And I don't want any sabotage of my character or my voting opportunities. And another thing is, if elected officials get salaries, precinct people should have salaries. It doesn't have to be a large sum of money, but just something that's sufficient. And I did write you a letter, and I gave it to the second floor, but I wanted to make sure, chairperson, that you have a copy of the letter too, so you can do what you do in the capacity of which you operate. And I don't know if you want to give it to Mary or who you want me to give it to.
You can provide it to Mary. Thank you,
And
Reverend.
I just want to make sure you have a chance to read it. And I was very serious Monday when I said someone needs to work on literacy with people, not just reading the ballots, which a lot of people don't know how to read the ballots. They don't know who they're voting for and what they're voting for. We need some financial literacy on how much voting is costing people. Voting is very expensive. And that's part of one of the reasons I believe the Republicans don't want more ballot boxes, because it's financial responsibility in maintaining those. And that is a true concern. And I just ask that you take everything that I say into consideration, which I know you do. And I ask that we become, one of my goals is to coordinate peace between court, church, and community. And when you need an attorney, when you need the police, then we have a serious situation. Director Perlotti, I will do what I can to help you to bridge the gap between this agency and the community. I have some great opposition, but I have more for me than I do against me. And I thank you all so much. And I thank you for what you're doing for me. That Safe at Home program for voting is not really that safe yet. So would you please talk to the Attorney General in reference to that? And if there's anything I can do, you can reach me. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. Appreciate your
Pastor
time.
Phillips was not able to make it.
I'm going to read, thank you. So I'm going to read into the record. Reverend Aaron Phillips asked to make a public comment. He's from the Sure House Baptist Church. He indicated that Skip D. White will help bridge the gap between this agency and the churches in Greater Cleveland. And then he also says, I've been working with Reverend Pinckney Butts to work with your agency also. So we'll put that into the record. Thank you, Reverend Phillips. And Miss Creighton, Rhonda Creighton, would you like to speak? If you just state your name and address, Miss Creighton, and you have 5 minutes to address the board.
Good afternoon. My name is Rhonda Creighton, and I live at 4470 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, Garfield Heights, Ohio, 44105.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Sure.
I, for the first time, ran for an office and petitioned to run against my opponent, who at the time was also my tenant, Mr. Michael Dudley. He was a former council person for the city of Garfield Heights. And although he was my tenant, he moved prior to the election and also utilized my address for his voting. The reason why I'm here is because I wanted to challenge or find out what the process is. I received a lot of help here in regards to that. Subsequently, I went on vacation. So I wanted to follow up with that result. We did have an eviction hearing this past Monday in regards to that, where I had to go through an eviction process for Mr. Michael Dudley Sr. And he is now a new resident in a different, in the same city, but in a different ward. He should not have voted from my address because I am the homeowner. And he filed his petition and voted from my address after he received his 30-day notice to vacate the premises. He and I were the only two opponents in that race. And I believe he did it in malice to even pull a petition. And it looks as if in the results that he may have won by 1 vote.
Excuse me, Ms. Creighton, is that, what race are you talking about?
Precinct committee
Committee
person
that just occurred.
for 1 seat.
That occurred in May.
Yes, sir.
I see, okay.
So I just wanted to share that information and ask if you could please look into this matter or advise me, please advise on what my next steps.
We will, Ms.
in regards to
Creighton.
that. I was, with the help, which I said they were very helpful. I did fill out a challenge of right to vote forms and things of such, but as I indicated, this is the first time in process that I've ever gone through this. And I don't know if I should be waiting in the mail for something or if this is like it, because he is no longer a resident in my ward and in my precinct. I'm not sure what to do at this point.
So what I asked you to do, Ms. Creighton, is after we're done meeting here, Mr. Gallagher will meet with you.
Yes,
And
sir.
maybe some of the staff if you talk to. But one of your rights is you can challenge his right to vote, so he can't vote at this residence that apparently was living at.
Yes,
I think
sir.
your other concern is that he doesn't reside in the precinct either. Is that
Well, it was basically fraud. He did not live there.
right? Right. So I'd ask you to,
Voted, nor his family members that voted from that address as well and filled out this petition.
so what we'll do is, after the meeting, Mr. Caller get with you and maybe some staff and take information down. But if we've got information, allegations of fraud, we have a duty to look into it, okay?
Yes, sir.
Regardless of the office.
Yes, sir.
I can't answer your question now,
Okay.
other than you came to the right place, okay?
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
all right, we'll be ending shortly, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Okay, and Ms. Stacy Collier, would you like to speak?
Good afternoon. Thank you all. Thank you. I am Councilwoman Stacy Collier of Garfield Heights, Ward 1. Once you certify the elections, I'll also be precinct committee person for 1A in Garfield Heights. I'm actually speaking on behalf of Ms. Creighton and her issue with former Councilman Mike Dudley. Once again, just the issue that he was a 7-term councilman, so he knows the rules with the Board of Elections. So with that being said, his filing of the petition, they were at a tie vote. I feel like he wasted county dollars at the tie vote. There was a recount needed when he knew he no longer lived in the ward or the precinct, but he still had you all go through the process. And then once the tie vote was done and he found out that he won, at that point, he didn't even come to you and say, hey, I'm no longer living in the ward, so I recuse myself from this election. He did not do that. Also, he had an opportunity when he went in to vote to change his address, because he was a 7-term councilman, so he also knows that rule, and so were some of his family members, and none of them even went in and did a provisional ballot to say that our address has changed. So there were several steps in this process where things could have been corrected and save the taxpayers time and dollars. I just have a problem with the former 7-term councilman playing fast and loose with the board and the process.
Well, understood, and you're welcome to be with Ms. Creighton if we
Thank
get the information. And I'm sure we'll probably reach out to Mr. Turner, is that his name?
No, Dudley, Michael Dudley, yes.
And I'll probably give him an opportunity to explain himself too, but
Yes,
I appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming down. Thank you, Ms. Creighton, Ms. Collier. Is there any other public comment? Okay, hearing none. One last item, an acknowledgement, and we don't have to accept it, but Mr. Wondolowski has emailed us, unfortunately. He is resigning effective June 9th, tomorrow, to serve on the Board of Elections. No longer on the Board of Elections. We all wish you very well, good health and continued success, David. Thank you.
Same to all of you.
All right, thank you.
Good
Lisa,
luck,
anything
we'll
else?
miss you. I just want to say good luck, congratulations on your new venture, and we'll miss you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sticken. Just a matter of point, unless we get a protest by 4 p.m. tomorrow.
That's correct. So tomorrow is for us, is the 4 p.m., the candidate protest deadline. If we do in fact get a protest filed, then we are required to hear that protest this Friday.
Right. Okay.
And so we will.
And Mark, you'll please advise us one way or the other. And Mark, what's a quorum? Is a quorum 3 or is it 2?
I think it'll be 3, right?
Does it have to be 3?
Chairman Hastings, I spoke with Board Member Chappelle this morning before I sent my letter of resignation, and in case I had to extend it by 1 day, she was very confident that she would be able to attend a telephone conference on Friday.
Terrific. Okay. All right then. Anything else from the board members? Hearing none, I'll move to adjourn. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Aye.
Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday and a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
So we may not have to meet till July 13th. Then.
Correct.